Hi, this is Marissa Levin, and I am founder and CEO of Marissa International. And on my episode for the Business Growth Architect Show, I shared and discussed the magic of growing older and better, and knowing that even when we hit midlife, as I go into my 57th year, I know that my best life is ahead of me, and that everything that I have experienced and all of the wisdom that I have accumulated up until this point has only equipped me to step into my highest purpose. And I can't wait for you to experience this episode and become inspired on how you can live your best life as well.
Welcome back. Beate Gillette here with Marissa Levin, and we are going to talk about a very, very big goal, a 1 billion people impact goal that Marissa has to bring more joyful lives to that many people. Marissa, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
So, please tell our audience who you are and what is up with 1 billion people. That is a big, audacious, hairy goal.
So I am Marissa Levin, and as I enter my 57th year, which I have 30 years of entrepreneurial and leadership experience behind me, I'm a mom of two sons, 23 and 26. I've had my share of experiences that have truly stretched me. My lifetime legacy mission, that's what I call it, is to empower 1 billion people to live their most joyful lives.
When you say live their most joyful lives, I have to, of course, ask the question, what does that mean? What is a joyful life?
It's a life with minimal suffering. And I won't say no suffering because I don't think that's realistic. And it certainly is aspirational to get to a place of no suffering. But really, to live a life of joy is to have a life where you have a sense of inner peace and contentment, and you're aligned and have congruence between your mind and your body and your heart and your spirit. And not that everything in your life is going exactly as planned, but you're able to be in a place of peace, which truly is what the path is to minimal suffering. And when we have minimal suffering, we have more joy. So it really is about finding the balance between suffering and joy.
In anybody's book, you're a very successful businesswoman. And yet, here we are, we talk about all these spiritual concepts. What does business strategy and spirituality have to do with each other in your world?
You know, I have never known business growth and business strategy without spirituality because I believe, and we've talked about this, we are spirits first, right? We are spirit first in human form. And everything that happens in our life, everything on our path, even though they're so, highly individual, highly unique, in every case, everything that happens in our life truly is there to expand our spirit. Like that's the purpose. For some people, it takes the path of entrepreneurship and business ownership. For others, it takes a different type of professional path. But for me, as an entrepreneur, as someone who is just always in a state of evolving and growing and changing, that is the definition of the spiritual path. It is about constant openness, constant evolution, conscious self actualization, always in motion from a spiritual perspective. And for me, as a business owner, that's just how I've always looked at everything, right? I'm now launching I'm expanding my fifth business that I've launched over a year ago that kind of has just coasted a little bit over the last year and a half as I've navigated some difficult personal things. But now I'm ready to fully expand and evolve that. And while I have a very clear business strategy and vision on how I'm going to do that, at the end of the day, this really is all about my spiritual evolution at its core, as everything else is in our life.
When I say to you the word, have you been activated to do this? What would you answer?
Have I been activated to do this? I think I came into the world like this. I don't know if I've been activated as in like recently activated. I think me coming into this world, we all come into this world with a purpose. I think a lot of my purpose really centers around um, helping others fulfill their potential, step into their higher purpose, create connection, community. That really has kind of always been who I am at my core ever since even I was a little girl. I was just one of those people that always was bringing others together. And now, with 30 years of entrepreneurial experience and wisdom and lessons learned under my belt, I'm able to take all of my experiences and package them in such a way, I think, knowing how to partner with the right people and the right expertise to make the biggest global impact I've ever made, honestly. Like, that's really what excites me.
One of the things that I love about you, Marissa, is that we had very early on a conversation about age. And I don't think it's being talked about a lot. I am going to be 60 this year. And so you and I, we're not that far apart.
Right.
I don't know if you hear this, but I have heard this certainly in my life before where people go, well, your daughter had a baby, you're a grandparent now, which in everybody's book ages me. Are we ever ready to retire? Are you ever ready to retire? And is that a concept that you think what do you think about the concept? Let me just ask that question.
I don't think I'm ever going to retire. I mean, I think lots of people kind of look at me and wonder where I get my energy, or don't I ever want to slow down? And I sold my last company a year and a half ago. It was July of 2022 that we
And I
sold
may
it.
say it was a great exit, right? If I remember this all correctly, it was
Yeah,
a
yeah, it
phenomenal
was. It
exit.
was it was a meaningful exit. It's not that it was like a highly, highly lucrative exit where I never have to work again. But when you say great exit, like, it was a very meaningful exit. And I feel that the company that bought our company, the whole purpose was that it was very soul aligned. And I felt good that what we created landed in the hands of someone who really appreciated it and would nurture it and take it to the next level. And I felt good about that leadership. So for me, that's how I defined great exit. But after all of that, I really had to sit and contemplate like what was next, and I've been through that process of building companies and then exiting out of them and moving on to new things and just constant evolution. And as I sit here now, this is my 57th year. As I sit here now, and I just shared with you right before we started that my very first full-time hire started today. And it's not just that I needed help, but the significance and the symbolism of that person starting today is that I'm truly ready to step into like my greatest vision and my highest potential that I've ever had. So I feel I'm like at the opposite of wanting to retire. I feel like everything that's occurred for me and that I've experienced in the last 30 years of business has prepared me for this point when I am finally ready to be my greatest self and have my greatest impact. I mean, it's the opposite of retiring.
Where do you get that kind of confidence from? Because a lot of people struggle with the confidence, right? And they go, "Well, I sure would like to, and I'm trying, and I've read a couple books." But I feel that when I talk to you, like this confidence is just like, well, it's just like there, right? It's like,
No,
wow, out in the so it's not. So tell us about that. How do you do it?
it's not. It's driven by like this feeling I have in my soul,
Mm,
right? Like I think we talked about like my spirit's name is Joy. Like I have personified her. She is my highest self. She's my inner voice. She lives within me. Like I can feel her, and I know you know when I am in my zone of genius, when I am feeling truly connected to my gifts and my talents and my purpose, like she's really happy. Like I have so much inner peace, right? Like I have so much joy within. And it's not a matter of whether or not I have confidence, because really that's kind of like an egocentric thing, right? Like our confidence really is connected to ego, where our purpose is connected to our spirit, right? And so for me, I'm driven by a desire to help others, to elevate others, to lift others. And a lot of that is just because of what my own personal experience has been, right? What my own human existence has been. And it's been challenging. Like I've had a lot of challenges in my life. I mean, you don't get to almost 60 and not have had challenges. And what we do with those challenges, some people, want to not even look at those challenges. Some people want to deny those challenges. Some people end up being bitter rather than better, right? What I've done with all of my challenges is I really have looked at them as learning tools, right? And one of my most important teachers is Ram Dass. I mean, we've talked about the spiritual path. I have a very deep spiritual path. And one of my most important teachers is Ram Dass. And, he talks about that we don't welcome, we don't invite suffering in for ourselves or for others. But when it arrives, what he says, by the awful grace of God, we can find the wisdom in the suffering. And so when I've gone through many, many different challenges, I really keep that perspective. Like that is what helps me get through a lot of my dark times, to just choose faith over fear and really dig into the patience and look for the wisdom. And then when I come out the other side, I just have this desire to want to bring that to other people, to help them alleviate their own suffering. So it's not so much that I have this like amazing confidence, because I really believe confidence is rooted in ego. It's that I have a yearning to help others live more joyful and peaceful lives.
That's an interesting angle, and I think one that I wanna just spend another minute or so on it, because that message to me is a really powerful message. People oftentimes look for, "Well, I just wished I'd be as confident as you are, that look at you, you overcame all these things." Like, well, you don't know how messy it was, and,
Right.
the bitter tears that we cried, and the despair that you feel when you're in debt, and stuff's breaking and things are not going your way, and you're being left, and your love falls apart and your business falls apart, and
Mhm.
September 11th takes it out. There's so many things that happen, but eventually, do you feel that because you have I'm gonna say a bad word. I call it the bucket full of shit that went wrong. And the
Mhm.
older you get, the bigger the bucket is,
Sure.
right? Because you've done so much that went wrong and you're still here and you're more powerful than ever. Is it that now it doesn't matter so much anymore because you're like, "Oh, compared to that and that and that, this is nothing." Or what's the attitude toward that?
Yeah, I mean, I try and stay in a state of grace. I mean, we do the best we can, and I still, even when things are difficult, I always woke up with profound gratitude for my life, right? Like you wake up, you're able to take another breath, right? I've always had a lot of love in my life. I've never had to wonder where my next meal is coming from. I've always had a roof over my head, right? Like just the basics. And everything is temporary. Like the highs of life, like the most amazing moments
Mhm.
are temporary, and the lowest lows are temporary. And so I think if you can move through life, even when you need to move through it, breath by breath, moment by moment, because that's all that you can focus on, because the pain is so great or the fear is so great. If you can just focus on breath by breath and moment by moment, you get through things. So um, I've come out the end, the other side, on a lot of different things. And, I hope I hope I have another 60 years ahead of me, right? Like, I mean, my goal is kind of like 120. So, if I'm halfway there, I can pretty much guarantee that that I'm going to have a lot more things that I'm going to have to contend with, and the rug's going to be pulled out from under me many, many more times, and it's okay. I'll be fine. I'll be okay. But for me, like every day that you take a breath is an opportunity to grow and to give thanks and to have grace and to help others. So that's just kind of how I look at it.
I loved what you just said about gratitude and the practice. Now, you talk a lot about vision and manifesting in
Mhm.
addition to gratitude. Will you take us through like your practice or your mindset? I think that one of the things I always say is like you can't believe everything you think, and people are so attached to their stories. So, for somebody who's now feeling a little bit stuck, how do you help them to vision and manifest their way out of that into a more joyful life?
So I have something in my room. I have a sign that says vibration precedes manifestation. And I look at that every day, like every night when I'm in bed, I have a sign that says that. I have a sign that says today is the beginning of everything you want. I have something that says peace. It's what I look at. It's, faces my bed. And so it's the first thing that I see when I wake up. And it's the last thing that I see before I go to sleep is this sign that says peace. And for me, like creating peace in my life has just kind of always been my highest goal. And so, with that in mind, I think about what I want my life to be. I'm also a very big Abraham Hicks fan, right? So
We
listen to
have that in
Abraham
common,
Hicks.
yes.
I listen to Abraham Hicks a lot. I use tools that they have a lot, like their focus wheel is a very helpful tool. And for me, I just like right now, I just started this new full time employee for Marissa International, and she just has so much to do for just to get me organized from like my whole online presence and my digital marketing and my and all the media that I want to do. I mean, I've got so much work for her, but I don't get stuck in the details. I am a big picture thinker, and what I'm creating through Marissa International is it's a global entity. Like it's a global conglomerate that's going to have a publishing arm. It's going to have education and training. It's going to have coaching, and it's going to have media. And like it's going to be big, and it's going to be far reaching, and it's going to be very impactful. And I just kind of keep my eye on that feeling again that I have in my heart of what I want to create. And I trust that like the details are going to work themselves out. And so I'm able to kind of on a day-to-day basis think about what is my lifetime legacy mission in terms of empowering 1 billion people to live their most joyful lives. And I keep my eyes focused on that.
Didn't Louise Hay from Hay House start a publishing company or empire and not until 60 or something? Uh,
Yeah.
I think I remember that story where she was, because people are always surprised that there are a lot of great ideas that are born at the later part of our journey. So I love that. It's a really, really big vision. Um, let's talk about strategy. So we talked a lot about spirituality and sort of how you get into mindset with your gratitude practice, with visioning, with having um, you know, ideas about the vibration supersedes, you know, everything else because it's right. The feeling is everything,
Mhm.
which I struggle. I don't want to say I struggle with it, but I think it's an everyday practice to say what is my vibration right now and how do I vibrate on all of
Oh,
this.
for sure. Yeah, I definitely. And to remember, Deepak Chopra has a great quote about vibration that it helps to remember that everyone operates at their own level of consciousness, right? So you're going to have many people around you throughout your life, throughout your day, that operate a much lower level of consciousness in terms of being in that place of fear and scarcity and lack. And we can empathize with them,
Yes.
or I can say we can have compassion for them, but we don't have to meet them where they are, right? In fact, if we want to help elevate them, we should not meet them where they are. So being aware of that, being mindful of the power of our own frequency, the power of our own vibration and our own energy, and making sure that we protect that in every moment is really important. And sometimes that means that we say no to people and we have to disappoint people if things don't feel good to us.
Very difficult if it's family members.
Yeah, it is. I just coached a client this past week about that, who has siblings that are running a business and the business is not doing well, and they want to bring her in to help fix that business. She already has a business and she's got a lot on her plate, and she doesn't want to disappoint her family members. And, I coached her and, I said, this is not your problem to fix. Like, yes, you might be the older sibling, but this is not your problem to fix. Like, they are adults and they've got their own business challenges, but you have your own business challenges and you have your life, and you have to be able to protect your own energy. We cannot be rescuers and fixers for others at the expense of our own energy. We cannot.
Oh,
And it
so
took me a
good.
long time to learn that lesson.
I'm still learning it. If I'm really honest with you, what is it about the fixing? I think this is really a great, you know, bridge, if you so want to, an unusual one to strategy. But I do believe that a lot of people are not following through on their strategies because they are caught up in these other open loops of other things that how they see themselves. Can you share a little bit about where do you see business owners, entrepreneurs get stuck in your line of work? And then how do you lay out the strategy for them to get out, obviously with your conceptual and spiritual principles or the joyful principles, but how do you help them to figure out what is the strategy for me to get out of it?
So, lots of things can derail a business and can derail a strategy. They can be internal within the company. They can be cultural. There can be toxic people. There can be toxic processes. But then there are external things that happen that they have, no control over, right? And if they're external, the ability to pivot is absolutely essential for business longevity and business success. If you drink too much of your own Kool-Aid, if you think that your products and your solutions are so good that no matter what, they're always going to be needed in the marketplace, you're going to go out of business, because what keeps a company in business is the ability to stay relevant. Okay. So if there are external changes, like, you look at what happened with the pandemic, there were so many businesses that never would have thought that they should or could adopt an online model. And those that realized that the only way they were going to survive was to create an online model, they're the ones that actually flourished, not just survived. And the ones who resisted the online format, they went out of business. So you need to be able to pivot and evolve with what's going on around you, or else you will become obsolete. So that's the answer. If, like, there are external changes. Internally, there are lots of things that can derail a strategy. I mean, sometimes people get complacent, they get stuck. You have too many egos at the table. You've got, one leader or, one team member that is disengaged or, is toxic, and it takes one spoiled apple to ruin the whole bunch, right? We're only as strong as our weakest link. And so it's what I coach my clients about, is the need to be process centric and not hero centric. So
Oh,
that's one
interesting.
way in which companies really kind of create bottlenecks. I work a lot on identifying and removing the bottlenecks from my client organizations, because that's where the life flow chokes, right? It's in that bottleneck, and they can be hidden everywhere. I mean, people get like so stuck in the weeds. So being able to really identify the bottlenecks, and also to have the courage and the ability to remove people who are no longer evolving with the organization. The Peter Principle inside companies is a real thing. That's where you promote people to your highest level of competence. So you move people up the chain just to show that you're, loyal to them. But if you end up promoting them out of their own zone of genius, then you end up with people who aren't able to do the job. And so you need to be able to either coach people up or coach people out. And if you can't do that, you're going to have problems.
I like this a lot. So what I've heard is that in the strategic aspect of the way you help your clients is that you look where what is and who does what, which
Mhm.
are the really the two most important things anyway. Why do get people caught up in this perception of loyalty to people that show up to work? This is like one of the things, and the reason I bring this up is like one of the concepts coming from Germany that I was always amazed in America. It was the citizenship award when kids go to school and they just go to school. They do nothing other than they go to school and they've gone sick. Then they get a citizenship award.
Mhm.
And so I had, when I came to the United States, I was a nanny for a 5-year-old and I was living on a houseboat. It was very adventurous. And then he came and he says, "Look, look, 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 I got a citizenship award." And I said, "What is that?" He says, "Well, I wasn't sick. I went to school every day." And I'm like, "You get an award for that? For just showing up?" Do you think this concept of just showing up and being rewarded of that is a problem in the work culture in our own lives? Where are we with this?
Yeah, I mean, I've never believed in like giving kids a trophy just for showing up on the team. I think it creates a whole culture of entitlement. And I will tell you that in a lot of my client organizations, the younger generations, like they don't have the patience to wait to be promoted and to wait to be rewarded and to earn the promotions. Like they're so used to instant feedback. They're so used to instant gratification, that the idea of them like working somewhere for a few years and then truly learning and then moving up slowly, it's beyond their comprehension. And there, I do have clients where it is the younger generations that just feel that they can demand appreciation, and it doesn't work that way. Like you have to earn the appreciation, you have to earn the respect. Just showing up isn't enough to be like rewarded. I mean, that's the bare minimum. Like if you're not going to show up, you shouldn't be on the payroll anyway, right? So showing up is the bare minimum.
I actually say this to people all the time is that you there are no points for being on time. That is expected.
Hmm.
There are no points for being good at what you do. That's why you get hired.
Right.
There are no points for you being an expert. That's why you have the job.
Right. Exactly.
Everything you want is beyond that baseline, the foundational baseline of you actually able to deliver. And when we work in growth architecture, we built the businesses and the value propositions. And then they say, "Well, I'm a good person and I show up on time and I know my stuff." I'm like, that should be the expectation I have if you walk onto my site
Right.
and or into my office, because if you don't, you really should not be in business. Do you think that COVID has something to do with that? Because in COVID, they couldn't find enough people, so they just threw a whole bunch of bodies just to secure the talent because they were so worried as everybody else was shopping. It was kind of like a nutcase scenario, in my opinion. And no surprise, all these people that got these cushiony jobs with all these great benefits were the first ones to be laid off.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, I think COVID, I mean, that disrupted just the global psyche in ways that, no one ever predicted. I mean, everything was fear based, right?
Mhm.
Everything, and when things are fear based, we revert back to survival mode. We revert back to feeling like we need to take care of ourselves first. It's us against the world. And unfortunately, I think that attitude did kind of, permeate the, and kind of seep into the corporate landscape. We did a lot of coaching at that time with my former company, the one that we sold 18 months ago. We did a lot of coaching with leaders about how do you lead in a pandemic, because it was new for them too, right? Like everybody in the whole world was going through it at the exact same time. And here are leaders who are on the hook for making sure that their people are performing, and they're performing under conditions that there was no playbook. Like no one had ever gone through it before. No one had ever been working in a pandemic. No one had ever been leading in a pandemic. Like there was no right or wrong. It was literally figure it out as you go along on a case by case basis in every organization. It was rough. Yeah, I mean, I think COVID disrupted work and workflow in ways that will never get back to what they were pre pandemic level.
Yeah, and maybe in a good way too. I will say that I look at the generation, my daughter and her husband, and the desire to have a life now and not
Mm-hmm.
postpone life until you're 65 to get
Mm-hmm.
an RV and then, die of a heart attack at 70.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said about the quality of a younger generation to look at people that came before them and say that is not desirable. And frankly, having been of this generation where it was just like first the work and then you get to enjoy yourselves. The question was never, I mean, not once have I heard growing up, have a good time or, feel good. It was always about, did you get your work done? Did you get your work done?
Right.
Did you get your work
Right.
done? So I do think that the balance is important. Somebody said something really interesting the other day that I read, and it was, yeah, like places where you didn't get to talk about your feelings. And it made me think, I can honestly say that in my entire childhood, the concept of talking about your feelings, it wasn't even a concept. I think we spoke never about our feelings, ever. I mean, it was like, it is irrelevant what I
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
So, do you think that there's a benefit though in how the world is changing right now, which I think you kind of testament for, Marissa, if I'm really honest, because you say I discovered how to be joyful and now I want to take this message to 1 billion people.
Mhm.
So, where do you see the positive aspects for people? Where are the opportunities?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I mean, I feel that the world today like has a higher level of consciousness than it's ever had before. I mean, you look at the information that's out there, you look at the Instagram feeds, the Facebook feeds, like what is being talked about on different talk shows, the focus on mental health, right? Mental health awareness, mental health solutions. Like the fact that these things are being talked about is tremendous. It's wonderful to give people permission to heal their trauma, to admit that they've had trauma, right? I mean, the only way that you can heal trauma is to admit it, right? We have a substance abuse problem in this country, in this world, with people wanting to um, hide their feelings and to be numb to what life has dealt them. And obviously, that's not the healthy way to handle things. So if we are now at a place where we've created a container, a global container for people to talk about what they feel, to address feelings of sadness and anger and anxiety and despair and loneliness. I mean, loneliness is an epidemic that is just as dangerous regarding mortality levels as cancer. I mean, we learned that during the pandemic. And so, if we've created this global container where it is becoming safe and encouraged for people to share what their journeys have been, to share what their traumas are, to know that in spite of their traumas, in spite of their fears and their negative, so-called negative emotions, that they are loved and worthy and seen and heard and valued and wanted. If we can create a container that allows that and encourages and celebrates that, that's a huge win.
I love that. I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's why there's so many people that are showing up that are doing that kind of work that you and I are
Hmm.
doing and collaborating on a different level where I've really for myself, and really speaking for myself, I've, especially being a podcast host, I recognize on how many people there are that doing amazing work. and how many
Mm.
people there are that are really here to change the world, and they're laying their souls bare and sharing stuff that they've never talked about. I mean, it's not been until my journey that I had with ayahuasca earlier this year that I even remembered half of the stuff that had happened. And then do I, for the first time in my life, feeling safe and okay with saying it is what it is and this is what happened. I was victimized, but I choose not to live as a victim. And that I
Mhm.
think is the most powerful message that, people like you are bringing forward to say, yes, you have trauma. And yes, everybody has trauma. And yet, but I see yours and I see you and I see who you are. But I'm going to give you the tools not to be in the victimization mode on what that has caused, but to heal yourself and then go spread the word.
Yeah, and all of the and thank you for bringing your story forward and creating this space and all of these podcasting channels, right? All of these social media channels, all of these opportunities to be able to get the word out. I mean, you look at the publishing industry, decades ago it was that if you didn't sign with a large publishing company, you couldn't write a book, right? Well, everybody has a book in them. I truly believe that. We all have stories that others can learn from, right? So that's an avenue. The podcasts are an avenue. The social media channels are an avenue. Newsletters are an avenue. Everyone can, actually get their own TV network if they wanted to pay enough money, to be on a cable network. There are so many avenues to be able to share your story and to create these containers and platforms for others to share. And this is what helps the world feel smaller. This is what connects us and gives people the opportunity to do that sharing, which is part of their own healing. So I think it's wonderful that we have this mechanism now to allow others to share their own stories. It's a beautiful thing.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for that. So, for somebody who wants to find out more about what you're doing right now and about you, where would we want to send them?
MarissaInternational.com is my website. And then I am very active on LinkedIn, Marissa Levin. Marissa Levin one is my LinkedIn address. And then I'm on Instagram as well. And I'm out there. Google my name, Marissa Levin. You'll find me. I'm kind of everywhere.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to have you on the show. I appreciate you very, very much. I love your energy. I love your message,
Aw.
and I wish you to get to your goal much faster than you think you can.
Oh, thank you. And I so appreciate the trust with your audience and with your show. I mean, I honor that and I'm grateful for it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And that is it for us for today. Thank you so much for listening to or watching this episode of the Business Growth Architect Show. And until next time, and goodbye.